The first encounter with tea was not intentional. No one was searching for calm. No one was looking for focus. No one was experimenting with leaves to improve the mind. The moment that changes history happens by accident around 2700 BCE, somewhere in southern China, in the humid hills where wild tea plants grew in abundance, places we now associate with regions like Yunnan and Sichuan. At that time, people weren't inventing beverages. They were trying not to get sick. Water was dangerous. Untreated water carried disease, so people boiled it, not as ritual, not as comfort, but as protection. Boiling was already a habit of survival. And in that ordinary act, something unremarkable happened. Leaves fell into the pot, not selected, not even noticed at first, blown in by wind, dropped from nearby shrubs, the kind of mistake that happens 1,000 times in human history, except this one stays. And this detail matters, because nothing about this moment was guided by curiosity. If the water had turned sweet, it would have been distrusted. If it had been intoxicating, it would have been rejected. If it had caused heat or agitation, it would have been avoided. But it was bitter, and bitterness in early Chinese medical thinking did not automatically signal danger. It signaled function. So the water was tasted, cautiously, and nothing dramatic followed. No rush, no euphoria, no collapse. Instead, the body steadied, the head cleared, digestion eased, the internal tension softened, subtle enough to trust. That's the key, because the effect wasn't theatrical. It didn't feel like a trick. It felt like a correction. And because it appeared without intention, it felt revealed rather than invented. Tea was not created. It was noticed. And from the very beginning, that sets tea apart. Coffee is a tool you reach for. Sugar is something you desire. Tea is something that corrects you, whether you asked for it or not. That is why tea begins not as pleasure, but as medicine and discipline. For centuries, tea remains what it has always been, a bitter leaf boiled in water to correct imbalance. It isn't celebrated, not ritualized, not shared for pleasure. It belongs to healers and scholars, people who need their minds steady for long periods of time, people who treat the body like a system that can be tuned. And then a new kind of discipline enters China, one that doesn't just demand health, it demands attention. Buddhism enters China in the first centuries of the Common Era, carried by traveling monks from India, along the same routes that carried texts, ideas, and techniques of the mind. And with it comes a radically new demand. Stillness, not rest, stillness with awareness, prolonged attention, long hours of meditation, chanting, study late into the night. Sleep is necessary, but too much sleep is failure. Stimulation is dangerous. Intoxication is forbidden. The problem is immediate. The human mind drifts. The body slumps. Attention collapses long before discipline does. And monks cannot afford collapse. They need something very specific. Wakefulness without agitation. Clarity without desire. Alertness without intoxication. Tea fits perfectly. Not because monks romanticize it, but because it does nothing extra. It doesn't excite like alcohol. It doesn't reward like sugar. It doesn't pull the mind outward. It holds the mind in place. So tea enters monasteries not as a drink, but as infrastructure. boiled the same way every time, consumed at the same moments every day, before meditation, before long study, before night chanting. This repetition matters. Tea becomes structured, not because monks enjoy routine, but because routine trains the mind. The bitterness reinforces restraint. The warmth anchors the body. The mild stimulation prevents sleep without creating restlessness. Tea becomes moralized. To drink tea is not indulgence, it is discipline. To refuse it is not virtue. It is impractical. Over time, tea is written into monastic rhythm. Timing becomes precise. Rules form around it, not like a law code, but like an internal architecture. This is where tea stops being accidental and becomes intentional. Not in its discovery, but in its use. At this point, tea is still largely within China. It isn't global. It isn't sweet. It isn't a lifestyle. It belongs to disciplined spaces. It is not for pleasure, not for status, not for trade. It is for control of the mind. And once a substance proves it can regulate attention, calm without dulling, and sustain focus without intoxication, power takes notice. Not imperial power yet, cultural power first, the kind that spreads through imitation, through scholars and officials watching monks who can sit longer, think clearer, endure more without breaking. That's how tea begins to leave the monastery, not as rebellion, as composure. And composure is useful to any system trying to govern itself. As China consolidates and bureaucratizes, tea drifts toward the class that runs paper, policy, and order. It becomes associated with the people who must think clearly, without acting impulsively, scholars, administrators, officials. By the Tang and Song periods, tea is no longer new. It's already known, already present, already understood as corrective. And that creates a different kind of problem. Because when a substance becomes common, power must decide how it is used. If tea remains purely functional, it remains personal. If it remains personal, it remains unregulated. If it remains unregulated, it becomes unpredictable. Empires hate unpredictability. So tea isn't restricted, it's structured. And this is where ceremony begins not as decoration, but as governance with soft hands. Because ceremony answers questions that law can't solve without violence. Who pours? Who receives first? Who waits? Who speaks? Who stays silent? Who sits where? Who is allowed to be casual, and who must remain careful? Tea turns a simple act into a visible hierarchy. Every movement becomes legible. Every role becomes fixed. Every participant knows their place. The monks used tea to control the mind. The court uses tea to control relationships. The monastery trained internal discipline. The empire aestheticizes social obedience. Discipline becomes ceremony. Control becomes culture. Tea itself is still simple. Water, leaves, heat, time. What changes is everything around it. Meaning moves away from the cup and into the sequence. And sequence becomes power. Silence is no longer just politeness, it becomes training. Waiting becomes normal. Correct posture becomes moral. Improper preparation becomes a kind of failure, not because the tea is ruined, but because the order is violated. And this is how empires operate. They turn everyday behavior into moral signal. Tea is perfect for this because it is non-intoxicating. It calms while keeping you awake. It sharpens awareness while keeping the body still. It does not create chaos. It produces predictable people. And when a practice produces predictable people, it becomes portable. Tea does not leave China as a leaf. It leaves as a system. How tea reaches Europe, and why that matters more than most tea history summaries admit. Tea doesn't walk to Europe. It sails. For centuries, Europeans in Asia hear rumors first, cha, a bitter boiled leaf drink, mentioned by priests and merchants encountering it in China and nearby ports in the 1500s. Early European references to tea appear by the mid-1500s. But tea is not yet a European habit. It's a curiosity, a foreign discipline, a taste that doesn't immediately flatter the tongue. The real transfer happens when Europe's ocean empires realize something. If you can control the sea, you can control what becomes normal. By the early 1600s, the Dutch East India Company, VOC, begins moving tea through its Asian network through places like Macau, Java, and other trading nodes until small shipments reach Europe. Records often place the earliest commercial movement in the first decade of the 1600s, with tea arriving to European markets shortly after. And at first, tea isn't for everyone. It's expensive, exotic, suspicious, a pharmacological curiosity sold like a rare substance, not a daily drink. That's why early tea enters European life through the kinds of places that already sell odd things: apothecaries, medical sellers, elite circles. Europe doesn't adopt tea because it tastes good. Early tea, unsweetened, is a discipline the tongue doesn't ask for. Europe adopts tea because Europe is entering an age that needs what tea does. Alcohol-dominated daily hydration in many places, beer, ale, wine, because safe water wasn't guaranteed. Alcohol dulls, it slows, it makes people socially loose and physically less precise. Tea does the opposite. It keeps you awake calmly, focused quietly, functional predictably. So tea begins to move through Europe as an answer to a rising demand for regulated bodies, merchants, clerks, administrators, people whose work depends on attention instead of strength. In England, tea becomes visible in the public sphere in the mid-1600s, sold in coffeehouse culture and recorded by diarists. Samuel Pepys famously notes drinking tea in September 1660, treating it as a novel China drink. Then the court adopts it. And court adoption is not a small thing, it's permission. When Charles II marries the Portuguese princess Catherine of Braganza, 1662, tea becomes fashionable at court, partly through that association, and fashion spreads downward. Now tea is no longer merely an imported oddity. It's a social signal, but Europe still has a problem. Tea is bitter, and bitterness limits mass adoption. So Europe does what Europe often does when it wants a substance to scale. It pairs it with a technology of desire. Sugar. Sugar doesn't just improve the taste. Sugar changes the function. Bitter tea asks for discipline. Sweet tea offers reward. Now tea doesn't merely stabilize you, it comforts you. And once tea becomes comforting, it can become scheduled. Morning tea, afternoon tea, evening tea. Not because the body demands it, but because the system does. This is where tea becomes timekeeping, a drinkable clock. a ritual that slices the day into predictable segments, a socially acceptable pause that doesn't intoxicate, doesn't disrupt productivity, doesn't cause disorder. Tea becomes obedience without a whip. And this is why tea's arrival in Europe matters so much. In China, tea trains composure and social order. In Japan, tea trains presence and internal rhythm. In Europe, especially Britain, tea becomes the fuel of routine, sweetened habit, timekeeping, institutional calm. It doesn't arrive as a drink. It arrives as a system that Europe can use. And Britain recognizes it immediately because an empire runs on predictable bodies. Tea doesn't make you rebel. Tea makes you endure. Enough energy to keep going, not enough chaos to break the schedule. And now we return back to the table, back to the kitchen. Tea looks harmless. It always has. It never shouts, never intoxicates, never announces itself as dangerous. It simply helps you keep going. And that's why it's so easy to miss what tea has been doing the whole time, from the first accidental leaves in boiling water, to monastery discipline, to imperial choreography, to British timekeeping. Tea has always lived at the boundary between human limits and human demands. When you drink it now, you're not following a trend. You're continuing a very old negotiation. And the quiet question isn't, do you like tea? It's, did you choose this? Or did the day choose it for you? Because once you notice that, tea is no longer just water and leaves. It becomes what it has always been, a mirror